Julie Gunlock, thank you for coming to the studio today.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. A lot of times we talk about, the latest outrage, what Bloomberg's doing,
Right.
things of that nature. Today we're going to talk about what you're doing.
That's right.
Which is actually very cool, and it's sort of an antidote to the nanny state.
That's right.
Take the red book, right?
It's a big, bright red book.
From Cupcakes to Chemicals, How the Culture of Alarmism Makes Us Afraid of Everything and How to Fight Back.
By Julie Gunlock.
Julie's new book. And it's available right now, right?
Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
I would note, by the way, that this is a softcover book, so you can actually whack
It's
heads with
bendable
it.
for stocking stuffers.
And it is totally bendable for stocking stuffers. Absolutely. And I made the same point, by the way, with Ilya Soman's new book, but we're not
Nice,
talking about
nice.
his.
Yeah,
no,
what are you
know
doing?
what? That was yesterday.
Why is that even on the desk?
Today we're going to talk about Julie's book. There's only one copy of Ilya's book. Right now there's 3 copies of Julie's book on the
They're
desk.
so generous.
Anyway, you could probably fit both, but anyway. I don't like to play favorites, but you are my friend. And I am going to be buying some copies.
Thank you. Good.
So that I can
Nervous
put
moms.
these into some...
Nervous parents.
Yes, into at least one stocking.
Good.
And it really is a great book. Julie was nice enough to ask me to blurb the back,
Yes.
which meant I got a sneak preview of the book.
Yes.
And as I said, America, we have a problem. Actually, we have a problem, and Julie Gunlock has the cure. From the food we eat to the clothes we wear, the alarmists and scolds are trying to tell us how to live. With humor and insight, Julie Gunlock helps us push back against the nanny state and own our own lives once again.
Perfect. Very nice. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. An endorsement by Cam Edwards. Big
Well,
deal.
okay, so first of all, what does this book do? Because it's less what this book is about, I think, and more about what this book does.
Yeah, look, the book is about trying to provide women, and it's there's a woman on the front, and I wrote it, but it's not just it's geared towards parents, and helping parents be able to better ascertain what's a good source of medical and health information and what isn't. Now, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but I kind of call myself a reasonable mom and able to sort of detect when a scientific study is being promoted by sort of a website or a source that promotes junk science. There's a lot of it out there. IWF, the organization I work for, we did some polling on this, and women are terrified. I mean, something like 87% of the women we polled agreed that the world was becoming a more dangerous place. I mean, that just isn't true. The world is becoming better. I'm an optimist. I am an optimistic person, but I mean, every indicator shows that the world is getting better. We're getting healthier, we're safer, we have cleaner water, we have better access to medicine and food, yet people feel terrified. And the reason they feel terrified is there's just a lot of scary information out there.
Yep. And, I would say one of the reasons why we have you on, because you talk about a phenomena that is present within the gun control debate, even though that's not what you talk about.
Right.
We are a less violent society than we were 20 years ago. We are a less violent society than we were 40 years ago. Criminologists can't really explain it. Gun control advocates try to gloss over it by talking about an epidemic of gun violence. Now, when the numbers are going down, that would indicate that there's not really an epidemic. That would, when people think epidemic, they think something growing out of control. When the reality is something very different. So you have to ask yourself, why are there people encouraging us to freak out?
Right.
And that's what it is, by the way.
It is.
The other name, your sequel, and there is going to be a sequel, right?
Right.
Can I suggest as a sequel title, just Don't Freak Out by Julie Gunlock?
It will be easier to say, honest to God, I've had so much trouble saying that. People ask me the title, I'm like, oh, geez, can I just cut this? So
I'm going to recommend simplicity for the sequel of just Don't Freak Out.
That might be it. It might be it.
Because that is what, whether we're talking again about the food that you eat, to the e-cigarettes, to the cars that you drive, to the kind of house that you live in, to the clothes you put on your children, to the guns that you own, and they don't like it when you do, to the vegetables that you eat, and the type of vegetables that you eat, and where you purchase the vegetables.
How expensive they are. Yeah.
They want you to feel bad. They want you to feel scared. They want you to feel overwhelmed by all of this information. I can't possibly sift it out, so I have to rely on the experts to tell me. I have to rely on these people. I don't want to. And what this is, again, I think is an empowerment.
Yeah, it is.
This is a way to say, no, actually, I can rely on myself. I got this. Thank you. I got it, Betters. Thank you.
You know, I've been writing about this stuff for years, and what amazes me is when, the press will rely on pretty radical environmental groups for information, and just a Google search, all the reporter needs to do is do a simple Google search to find the other story, which is never presented. And what I'm telling moms to do, and dads and, parents, look, you can't rely on the media to give you both sides. So you're going to have to step up your own research and rely on yourself. And what this book also says is rely on your instincts as a parent, and a little common sense goes a long way. What the alarmists do, and particularly I talk a lot about how it impacts parenting, it makes it less fun. Look, I'm really tired at the end of the day. I mean, my bedtime gets early and earlier because of my kids. I'm tired at the end of the day,
It really
and I have
sucks,
a lot
by the
to
way,
do.
when the streams cross. And it will happen one day when
Yeah.
all of a sudden your kids are staying up later than you, and you're like, okay,
I'm out of here.
son, I don't know how it is that I'm paid for your food and everything, and yet you're still awake watching HBO, and yet I'm exhausted. I have to go to bed.
I know.
One day
I know.
that day will
I know
come.
it will. And but I feel like the alarmists want to make mothers and fathers their job more difficult, more busy. I mean, because let me tell you, if you listen to the alarmists, you're not doing it good enough. You've got to spend more, go to different stores, buy boutique items. You've got to worry more and work harder, and everything's got to be, you can't just buy a loaf of bread. You got to grind the wheat yourself. I mean, it is insane the kind of expectations put on parents now by these alarmists in order to keep kids safe. So I hope it's a little dose of common sense, and, really encourages parents to take a deep breath, because they'll enjoy parenting more if they don't worry about sort of make-believe that the alarmists make up to make their lives more difficult.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it is nice. It is take deep breaths while you're reading the book.
Yeah.
And and it is just sort of almost a pat on the back. I do hope that other parents will read this, and it is sort of a pat on the back and say, listen, it's okay. It's not, you don't have to let the alarmists get to you.
And from a policy perspective, look, I write in this book, I have a lot of my own sort of stories about raising kids and how I sort of make decisions. But people also...
Your kids are adorable, by the way. I can vouch for this.
Yes,
If your kids were little monsters, then this would be a very awkward interview, because at this point I would have to say, in the interest of my audience, Julie, you talk a good game, but your kids are horrible people. And I don't have to say that, because your kids are actually great.
And they really enjoy the farm. They're always asking about Cam the farmer.
Well, they are wonderful kids. They're very well spoken. They're very intelligent. They're very respectful, but they're very inquisitive. They're good kids. They're good kids.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. On the policy perspective, people need to understand too that I tell a lot of these stories about how you just make parenting easier, but it's important not to forget. I mean, I'm a small government girl. And part of this book is to point out to people how fear is really profitable to a lot of these groups, but it also feeds big government. When the population is afraid, they are more likely to say something must be done, and then some brave congressman or regulator comes in and regulates a certain industry. So I also hope that this book reminds people that if they give into this fear, they're being used as pawns to grow the government, and that's a sort of policy perspective I hope isn't lost in this story about being a good parent and relaxing a little. So.
Absolutely. All right, listen. Here's the most important part. We've now established, I think, that this is a book that every person who's listening to this not only would like, but actually needs to read.
Yes.
How do we help them get a hold of the book?
Well, you can go to iwf.org, and there's a link to my book, and it'll take you directly to the Amazon page. But more importantly, just go to Amazon. There's not a lot of names that sound like Gunlock.
That's true.
On Amazon. So you can just search for it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble.
All right. Julie Gunlock, thank you so much for coming on the program
Thanks
once
for
again.
having me on, talking about the book and endorsing it, Cam. Thank you very much.
Merry Christmas.
Yes.
And there you go. Great stocking stuffer.
Thanks.
Julie Gunlock will be with us next week once again here on Cam & Company.